link. Let's start. Hello everyone, thanks for coming and welcome to Geek Nights. Let's go from the way. My name is Bamdad. I'm a software developer here at ThoughtWorks. I've been doing some experiments with BitCoin, and I found it interesting to share it with everyone here at Geek Nights. We've got some events, announcements coming up. We have quarterly technology briefing at 18th of June. We have Girls Geek Night at 19th of June, and we have a evening with Martin Fowler on 25th of June. The events are all on the website www.thoughtworks.com. If you're interested, you can register and attend. Please tweet to me at Bamdad and TWUKNorth or #ThoughtWorks. I would be happy to see your comments and feedback. So today we got here to talk about Bitcoins. I'm gonna do this is a content of this talk. I'm gonna do an introduction about Bitcoin, how we use and trade Bitcoins. We're gonna cover some concepts, basic concepts in Bitcoins, and some advanced concepts, some cryptographic concepts. Then I'm going to speak about what mining is, how we can actually mine Bitcoin or create Bitcoins, and the interesting aspects of Bitcoin for developers, how you can contribute to Bitcoin's community, and what are those communities are. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, and it's been firstly described in 2008 in a paper, and the author name was called Satoshi Nakamoto. It's probably not the real name of the author, and because there is no other references to that name anywhere available. So people are guessing who the author is, but it's not it hasn't been proven yet who the author is yet. It's a type of digital money which relies on a cryptography, and it's actually using cryptographic techniques to facilitate the transaction, to sending transaction and creating transaction over the Bitcoin network. There are some properties, some known properties about Bitcoins, why people are actually using it, why people think it's a different currency to the other electronic currency, available electronic currencies, and why people are actually using it. The main important thing is that it's a decentralized currency. So it's not being, there is no central authority which is in control of the whole Bitcoin network. And no one can actually directly control what's happening in Bitcoin. No one control what's actually gonna can control what's happening inside the Bitcoin network. It's using peer-to-peer technology. That's why it's decentralized. So everybody, all the nodes in the network, are helping each other to maintain the network and to maintain the network and provide a transaction service. The whole Bitcoin network is open for everyone, so anyone can actually create an account and make transaction on Bitcoin network. They don't require to have to show their identity, and it's really easy to start transaction, making transaction, sending and receiving money with Bitcoin. The main there is another property about Bitcoin, which is privacy. Bitcoin is fairly confidential electronic money, so you can actually you don't need to provide your to show your identity in order to create an account or in order to make transactions. So unlike other electronic currencies, if you want to compare it to PayPal or any other on all of those currencies, basically you are required to provide your identity and prove that you are prove who you are. But Bitcoin is similar to emails. You can create as much Bitcoin accounts are similar to emails, so you can create as much as accounts as you want. You can have multiple email addresses, so you can have multiple Bitcoin accounts as well to send and receive money with them. There is another important thing about Bitcoin is that you don't require to have internet access in order to create an account. You can basically create an account offline, and the identity of the and there is no registration basically. So the network start tracking your account as soon as your identity or your account is being used inside one transaction. One other thing is that you can create a batch of accounts for yourself. So and also you can create a temporary account, for multiple temporary accounts for yourself. So this is really important. It's been used in a lot of applications. So when you want to receive when you want to receive money, for example, we have a website and we have a lot of users. You can assign a single address per user, and it's making it much easier to see how much you have received, how much money you have received, or how much money you have paid to a single user. Also, it doesn't show, and you can actually hide or make it more private, make the transaction more private based on using different accounts. What we are seeing here is a graph showing the number of active Bitcoin nodes around the world. We can see US is a country with the most number of active Bitcoin nodes. China is also the second one, Germany and Russia, and also UK. I think it's about 30,000 active nodes in the US and about 20,000 active nodes in the UK. This is a chart showing what is the current value of Bitcoin. It's about $112 per Bitcoin currently. I think the chart is for yesterday, so maybe it's changed. I haven't checked today, but you can see a really big spike at around 15th of March, and the currency reached a value of around $230 per Bitcoin. So it's well, people are actually talking about this is an unstable currency to work with, because you can see in a day what happened to Bitcoin, the price of a Bitcoin, or in a week actually. But people are actually talking about that this is a totally new currency, and it takes time to become stable. So we will be able to see these kind of spikes on a Bitcoin value until it becomes more popular and more stable currency.
Is there a reason why it's shot up to $230?
Well, basically, Bitcoin works on demand and supply, and I think the main reason it reached that price was that there are a lot of media covering news about what Bitcoin is and how the people can use it, and there was a lot of demand for Bitcoin those days, and there wasn't enough supply. So Bitcoin has a limited number of supply per day. So if there are more demand, that actually increases the value of the Bitcoins.
Was it also connected with the events taking place in Cyprus about that time, when there was a big shortage of banks being open, people being able to get their money? Does anybody else know?
There was a lot of speculation about that, but a lot of media interest in it was at that stage saying that people from Cyprus could buy Bitcoins and the government couldn't seize them. But whether that actually, at the time it happened, the Cypriots couldn't actually get any money to buy Bitcoin. So it's unlikely that the Cypriots had caused it, but the media attention was
To it,
them.
yeah.
So how are a fixed number of Bitcoins circulated, or are Bitcoins pegged?
Right. It's going to be the maximum number of Bitcoins which is going to be circulated. It's going to be about 21 million Bitcoins. So there wouldn't be no more than 21 million Bitcoins, and I think it's about 10 million Bitcoins. Was it? Right?
It's over halfway.
Right, yeah, 10 million Bitcoins which has been mined currently. I'm going to talk about this. Yeah. So Bitcoin identity. So in order to make transactions, you need to create a Bitcoin identity for yourself, and they are not tied to real world identity because you don't require to prove that who you are to the network. It's fairly simple to create accounts. Usually, right now you can use a lot of websites to create multiple accounts per second, and this is an example of one Bitcoin account. It's basically a hash, it's as we said, it's like an email address and can be created offline. They are, if you are familiar with cryptographic pair keys, it's basically similar to private and public keys, or in protocols like SSH. So basically, you need to have a pair of keys in order to sign and verify a message. This is well, I'm going to talk about how these verifications happens later on when I'm talking about Bitcoin mechanics. In order to use Bitcoins, you are required to use one of the available Bitcoin clients. They are almost all of them are open source. The famous ones are open source, so you can look at how they work. They provide you, they let you generate as much as Bitcoin addresses that you want. They let you send and receive money, and they are able to connect to Bitcoin network, and in order to broadcast the transactions and receive all the transactions happening inside the Bitcoin network. There is a concept in Bitcoin that all the transactions are being written in a one big file, and that file is called blockchain. The blockchain is a file or multiple files which is available in almost all the Bitcoin nodes. So if a new transaction happens and get verified, that transactions get listed into that file on all the nodes. There are two options, or maybe more. You can. These are the examples of the Bitcoin clients you probably can download or install or start using it right now. The first Bitcoin client which has been written is called Bitcoin D. It's a command line user interface for Bitcoin network. The famous one, which I'm currently using, is Bitcoin QT. You should be. It does have a graphical user interface to interact with, and there are a couple of other Bitcoin clients that you can use. There are also these. I've listed some online clients for Bitcoin which you can use. You can search for more. There are all of them have some. Each of them have their own characteristic, because, for example, some of them do encryption on your account. Some of them provide more level of security. Some of them don't. You can also install or write your own Bitcoin client as well. Bitcoin clients are available in almost all platforms. You can use them on Windows, Linux, Mac, web, and mobile. These are some examples of how they look like. So this is a web client, desktop client, and two mobile clients here. How to trade Bitcoin? There are a few ways that you can buy and sell Bitcoins. The main ones, I think, are exchanges currently. So you can, if you want to buy a big number of Bitcoins, I think it's better to use exchanges, because you have to pay a bank transfer fee, which is about £25, and in order to transfer money, but they give you, but what you get is the less amount of commission on the transaction. So you probably have to pay 1% commission fee to exchanges like Matrix or BTCE to get the amount of the Bitcoin that you want. There are other online websites if you want to buy a small amount of Bitcoin, I suggest you to use one of these websites. The main one is Local Bitcoins, which we have a picture of it here. What you do in this website is that you go and enter your postcode or the city that you currently are, and you find the people who are buying and selling Bitcoins. You can buy Bitcoins online, or you can arrange a meeting and pay in cash if you want. That's the most secure way, I guess. If you don't want your identity to be attached to a Bitcoin account. There is another website called quickbitcoin.co.uk. I haven't used it, but I've seen it's been some people in the community are talking about it. And there is another UK-specific website which is similar to localbitcoins.com, but it's only for UK. Localbitcoins.com sells big amount of Bitcoins usually. So if you want to buy, like the example here is 50 to 252 Bitcoin. So if you want to buy 50 Bitcoin, which is really expensive, you can use them. There are some people who are selling less amount of Bitcoins, but if you want to buy a small amount of Bitcoin, this website is much more useful. You can get a better rate in the UK.
Would this charge 1% commission as well? Or is it very...
It depends on the people who are actually buying or selling. So so you can see what you see in this website is basically the price, the final price you need to pay. So if somebody is selling Bitcoin for £70 or less, you can find people actually selling Bitcoins cheaper than what the exchanges are selling. Because imagine, like, somehow.
Well, if you bought 6 months ago at 18 pence,
Exactly.
I want the
Do you have to actually buy them in whole units, or you buy them in sort of whatever units you want, or sub-units or sub-1 Bitcoin?
Yeah, you can buy subunit as well. Some concepts. So the main important thing, the main important concept can be transaction. It's basically how we are making making transactions in Bitcoin is by using digital signatures. Transactions, they do bind the sender's identity to the transactions, and by the sender's identity, I mean the Bitcoin identity. It's not the real world identity. Once you make a transaction in the Bitcoin network, they all broadcast it to all the available nodes in the network, and everybody receive a message. Receive a message about that transaction. The only thing is that you may receive a message about a transaction being made, but it may not be verified yet. Also, receivers can get some mathematically assurance about the payer and about the transactions. So you can check, for example, if the sender have actually does have that specific amount of money that you're gonna receive. So you can actually check if the person who's going to pay you have that money in his account before making the transaction, or before processing the transaction. What other important is that because basically Bitcoins are each Bitcoin has its own owner. So when you are making making a transaction, what you are doing is that you are changing the ownership of a Bitcoin. There are techniques that you would be able to temporarily assign two owners per Bitcoin, and that is called double spending a coin. But the network stops you from verifying those transactions. So if you have a Bitcoin and you want to basically to make two transactions to two different persons with the same amount, the Bitcoin network stops you to doing that, and it will only verify basically one of those transactions. The next thing is blocks, Bitcoin blocks. All the data or all the transactions in the Bitcoin network are recorded in files called block. A block is basically a record of all the most recent transactions that hasn't been added to the blockchain, the main Bitcoin history log yet. And so what network does is that when you created transactions, all the transactions which has happened in the latest 10 minutes are going to be collected in one single file, and we call that single file Bitcoin block, and they get added to the end of the blockchain once they get verified. So each block has an understanding of the previous block. So each block knows about all the transactions happened. At least the identification of the previous transaction happened 10 minutes ago, for example, and it makes the Bitcoin blocks to have some continuity. So if you want to know what's the latest block, what the latest block is, and if you find it, then you will be able to understand what the previous block was, and you will be able to reach the first created Bitcoin block. As we said, blockchain is a shared public transaction log, which is shared between all the nodes inside the Bitcoin network, and only confirmed transactions are included on that log.
How big do these blocks get then? So does it each? So it's a P2P network. So does every node of that contain a copy of the blockchain?
Yeah.
So over time that must get bigger and bigger.
Yes. It's actually really big now. It's about 7 gigabytes, I guess, the last time I checked. So in order to, if you want to use a desktop application, desktop Bitcoin client, which is not working with any other web APIs, then you really need to download that one. And it took me, if you don't want to, if you really want to download that blockchain normally, because there are some shortcuts that you can take. It took me about probably 4 days, because it's a P2P transaction. You need to find it takes time to discover available nodes. So it's not a very fast way to get it, but there are zip files that you can download, and it will start to sync and catch up with the network.
So you take a snapshot of it, and it'll build.
And this blockchain is a chain of all the transactions, not just the blocks representing individual.
So each block includes all the transactions happen in 10 minutes, for example. Yeah. So basically, what you get is a list of all the transactions made on the network. So what you get from that is that you can understand what's happened in the whole network, and it's open to everyone. So if you know a Bitcoin address of somebody, you can go and check how much money he has in his account. That's why people don't actually. That's why people actually create as much as accounts that they can when they are dealing with when they are making their business, because it somehow make it more private when you are hiding your identity.
But the blockchain is accumulation of all the Bitcoin transactions.
Yes.
You said about 7 or 8 gig at the moment?
Yeah.
If this becomes as popular as Visa, I guess, it can grow very quickly to a very large size. Will it still be practical?
Yeah, this is what actually Bitcoin community is thinking of. They are thinking of how they can compress the data, or how. So they are thinking of options available how you can compress the data and reduce the size, because the transactions are actually increasing.
And I think at the moment the blocks are limited to 1 megabyte in size. So actually they're looking to increase that so it can hold more transactions in a single block. So that, as you say, if it gets bigger, more popular, it needs to scale, and that's going to be the sticking point at the moment. Each block is limited to 1 megabyte.
Transactions are usually free, unless there are in your transactions you are making a really large transaction. For example, if you want to make a payment to 2,000 people at the same transaction, then you need to then you are required to pay a fee, because also that helps the network to verify your transaction. You can define also a priority in your transaction if you want, and it makes it gives a network, the one who actually verifies your transaction, a reward to make that transaction faster, to make that verification faster. So if your transaction is bigger than 10 kilobytes, then you need to pay a fee.
You pay with bitcoins.
So yeah, you're paying a Bitcoin.
Okay, you can pay it with bitcoins.
Yeah. So you define you put a reward inside your transaction when you are creating a transaction.
So that's how you mine money then. So that's how you build.
That's one of the incomes for miners. This chart is showing the total number of fees in Bitcoin happening on right now. So it's about 50 Bitcoins right now per day. So it's quite interesting that miners actually are receiving about 50 Bitcoins per day to verify transactions. Okay, cryptography.
How do you guarantee there's fairness in the transactions? In terms of the speed of knowing how many transactions are on the network at a particular point in time.
Sorry?
How do you know there's fairness, if you like, of the transactions that are taking place with bitcoins? To stop, say, for example, somebody who's got very fast access to the transactions, being able to predict value, for example.
Right. Okay. To predict the Bitcoin value.
Yeah.
Well, the transactions are happening instantly as you broadcast them to the network, but the verification takes time. So, so you can actually calculate the Bitcoin price that you're going to send or receive instantly, and you make a transaction, and then it takes a few minutes to get for the transaction to get verified. So the timestamp, the time that you are making transaction, is actually one of the things that you can see on a transaction. That's fairly instant.
How are they going to keep the miners interested? The difficulty level with so high, you know, and you're only halfway through getting the coinage you want. And the difficulty level in mining,
Right. Okay.
since it started 5 years ago, you know, the mine's been getting, you know,
Yeah. Exactly. So
there's always a really big mining, you know,
Cool.
assets and stuff. What's going to be able to get this coinage? And no matter what's working on it, you're still only going to get one coin out in 10 minutes. So it'll just be done with faster computation of the things that you're still going to get. How long have you been interested in Bitcoin?
me.
Yeah. We're like 5 years too late, really, on the mining side of creating Bitcoin.
Right.
It's as if the word's going out to, we need help to get more, you know. Just an interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. So I've
We're getting 50 coins a day,
Right.
which is what's that, 50,000
Right.
pounds. How's that going to pay 30,000 people daily their electrical bill? You know, and then keeping that people interested to keep the Bitcoin alive, because once the computers go on, a virus gets in there, the money's different.
But-
Just a question.
I've been working on Bitcoin for about a few months. And I haven't actually run my own Bitcoin farm or my Bitcoin miner here. I've been working with a few people else running Bitcoin farms, and the reason I've got interested in Bitcoin is that I did my master's on parallel computing, and that's why I've got interested in implementing parallel algorithms.
You get it coded in.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So cryptography is the base of Bitcoin network. Basically, we are using there are different cryptographic algorithms available, like SHA-256 or MD5, and they are based on digital signatures, and they actually use they use a hash function to get an input, a message as an input, and apply some mathematical function on those messages, transfer those. So this is what cryptography does. You give a message as an input, and it applies a mathematical transformation on that to create a digest of that message. These functions are deterministic functions, which means that they create the same output for the same input. Always they create the same output, and they are computationally efficient. So it's not really expensive for somebody who has a computer to get the hash, to get the digest outside of the message. They are collision resistant, so it means that it's really hard to find an input, two different inputs to create the same hash, same digest.